This public hearing, conducted by the Committee on Appropriations and Adjudication, will come to order. Notice of the public hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets by electronic format on Monday, July the 10th, 2017, with the second notice provided on Friday, July the 14th, 2017. Notice of the hearing was also made known on the Legislature's website. This evening we have one bill on the agenda, and it's Bill 139-34 COR, introduced by Senator Nelson and Senator Estevez and Senator Castro. And it's an act to approve the terms and conditions of the Guam Power Authority revenue bonds to refund outstanding Guam Power Authority revenue bonds. We have several individuals who have signed up to testify. We have Mr. Duenas, the chairman of the CCU, Mr. Kim from GPA, Cora Montalavo from GPA, John Beneventi from GPA. Why don't you come up? Whoever's going to testify from GPA. We also have a representative of PUC and one from GIDA, Mr. Harecki and Mr. Rojas. Do you want to join us at the table at this end? We'll just have everybody here. Mr. Chairman.
Good evening, Speaker Cruz and Senator Estevez. My name is Joey Duenas. Okay. Pardon?
There is an opening statement by the sponsor, and Senator Estevez will read it. An opening statement by the sponsor, Senator Nelson, and the co-sponsor, Senator Estevez, will read it to introduce the bill.
Hafaday. On behalf of Senator Nelson, I have here her opening statements. Dear Speaker Cruz, Hafaday, thank you for expeditiously scheduling Bill 139-34 CORE, an act to approve the terms and conditions of Guam Power Authority revenue bonds to refund outstanding Guam Power Authority revenue bonds for a public hearing. Based on historically low interest rates and current market conditions, GPA expects to be able to refund certain maturities of its outstanding 2010 Revenue Bond Series A for debt service savings. In addition, GPA expects that opportunities will arise from time to time to refund all or a portion of its other than outstanding revenue bonds for debt service savings, which is expected to result in potential savings to ratepayers. Bill 139-34 CORE would save our ratepayers a projected $3.1 million of bond savings in order to benefit ratepayers. The bill determines to approve the issuance of revenue bonds by GPA and is subject to approval by the Consolidated Commission on Utilities, the Governor, the Public Utilities Commission, and the Board of Directors of Guam Economic Development Authority in accordance with law. According to GPA, the 2010 Revenue Bond Series A was used for capital improvement projects such as the Smart Grid projects at $17,000, GPA new main office and operation facility improvements at $35,000, ambient air quality monitoring at $1,900, generation improvements at $16,859, underground fuel pipe conversion at $2,150, fire protection upgrades at GPA facilities at $3,808, power substation transmission upgrades and improvements at $11,550, system protection relay improvements at $1,893, and power distribution system improvements at $16,159, with a total of $106,319 for bond projects. The total payments of the old bond is $184 million, and the new bond total payment is $179 million, with a cash savings of around $210,000 per annum. Senator Nelson would like to thank Senator Castro and myself for co-sponsoring this bill with her, and she looks forward to the committee's discussion and approval of this legislation, and requests that this statement be included in the committee's report of Bill 139-34, Core, Sidus Masi, signed Senator Telina Cruz Nelson.
Thank you very much. I think we'll probably have to make some amendments because I think it probably should have read in the millions, but I'm not sure how it was reported.
I'm sorry, that's right. Yes.
And Mr. Chairman.
Thank you again, Speaker Cruz, Senator Esteves, and Senator San Agustin. I come before you tonight to represent the Commission, and we are in support of this effort to refund our bonds. We have a written testimony from our General Manager, and we believe that this is a good thing for the ratepayers of Guam. We believe it will lead to savings in terms of lower debt service coverage for us. And although it's not a huge savings, it is still a savings which we believe we are looking for any way of cost cutting. So with that, I'd like to ask our General Manager to read his testimony into the record. Mr. Speaker.
Please.
Good evening, Speaker Cruz, Senator Esteves, and Senator San Agustin. On behalf of the CCU and Guam, my name is John Benavente, General Manager of the Guam Power Authority. On behalf of the CCU and Guam Power Authority, we sincerely want to thank Senators Telina Nelson, William Castro, Fernando Esteves, and yourself for introducing and scheduling a hearing on Bill number 139-34. This proposed legislation does a good thing for our power ratepayers. The bill allows GPA to refinance portion of its 2010 revenue bond in order to reduce interest costs and reduce debt service payments. Historic low interest rates provide an opportunity to provide ratepayers with cash savings and debt service. By refinancing these revenue bonds, ratepayers will save $4.8 million of debt service payment over the life of the bond, or $3.1 million in net present value. GPA is requesting to refund $95 million of the $150 million of the 2010 revenue bond. The interest rate on the existing bond is 5.5%, and the all-in true interest cost for the refunded bond will be at a lower 4.22%. The length of the bond will be the same as the existing bond, meaning there is no extension on the term. Appendix A and B are attached to show the calculations used to determine the savings. GPA filed a petition with the PUC for refinancing last November 2016, but the interest rate increased shortly after the filing, which made refinancing not attractive. However, interest rates have recently dropped to where the saving is again possible. GPA will be pursuing PUC and GIDA approval for this refinancing, but in any case, legislation is required for us to proceed. And in closing, the CCU and GPA support and respectfully request approval of Bill 139-34. And thank you again for this opportunity to testify, and we remain ready to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Anybody else on GPA side that's going to be testifying? Just you. Okay. Mr. Harecki, if it's all right, can I get the testimony of Mr. Rojas on first and then have yours since...
Good evening, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for having us here. GIDA has actually provided written testimony, and GIDA is essentially here to be able to support the passage of Bill 139-34. We have been in constant communication with both Guam Power Authority and the CCU to be able to take a look at refunding opportunities. And as the General Manager has actually stated, we are looking at approximately $3.1 million in NPV savings over the term of this refunding.
Okay. There is written testimony submitted by Gita.
Yes.
Do you want to add anything else besides that?
Nope. I'm available for questions if necessary.
Thank you. Mr. Harecki.
Thank you, Speaker Cruz, Senator Stevez. My name is Frederick Harecki. I'm the legal counsel and the administrative law judge for the Guam Public Utilities Commission. I am appearing tonight to provide the testimony of Chairman Jeffrey Johnson, the chairman of the PUC, who has offered written testimony on behalf of the Public Utilities Commission. Essentially, the PUC will be involved in this process of reviewing this bill. Normally, we refer these matters to our consultants, but we indicate we haven't had that opportunity yet. But our initial take on this proposed refunding is that it is not justified, that there is not a pressing need to refinance or refund a portion of the revenue bonds. PUC is not convinced that GPA would achieve sufficient savings to justify the expense and burden of the refunding. Ratepayers would not be harmed in the absence of this refunding. PUC, therefore, at this point, opposes the bill. To indicate the basic problem, the amount of bonds that GPA would intend to refinance is about $95 million. But to refinance $95 million, they're going to spend $110 million. Because in addition to the amount of the bonds, they have to pay premium and the cost of issuance. Again, they are only refunding a portion of the bonds. The entire bond issue was $150+ million, but this refunding would only be about $95 million. GPA estimates that the cost of issuance will be $1.9 million. Such cost would include expenses such as underwriters' fees, underwriters' discount, bond counsel fees, fees to the Guam Economic Development Authority, and fees for the engineer's report. PUC is very concerned about the high cost of these fees, particularly underwriter fees and GITA fees. We note that GITA has already advertised in local newspapers for an underwriter for this issuance, as if it's already a done deal. GITA and the underwriters will certainly benefit monetarily from this issuance. However, GPA has no firm figures yet on what the actual cost will be. Its estimate was calculated based on 2% of the issuance of $95 million. But as I mentioned, in addition, there will be a premium cost to issue the bonds of over $10 million. These are upfront costs spent at the time of issuance. In the view of these large upfront costs, the proposed savings seem somewhat paltry. GPA has claimed that there would be gross savings of $4.8 million over the next 24 years and annual gross savings of $210,000. But as Chairman Duenas mentioned, what is really considered is the present net value savings, because we're talking about savings 24 years down the road. Those net savings would only be $3.08 million over 24 years. And if you use that figure, the annual savings would be closer to $128,000. GPA would be spending nearly $2 million upfront in issuance costs and $10.5 million premium to obtain savings of $3.08 million. The question is, why should these substantial costs be paid up front to obtain rather small savings over 24 years? Remember, GPA, Senators, is a company with revenues of over $370 million per year. $123,000 per year seems to be something of a drop in the bucket. There are certainly other ways that GPA could save money more easily without the burden and expense of bond refunding. Cost efficiency measures, reducing overtime, cutting employment positions, reducing unnecessary contracts. So as a cost-saving measure, The GPA has not really demonstrated that this refinancing is an efficient or cost-effective method. Remember, the savings don't occur now. The savings will only be annually over a period of 24 years. Money now that GPA has is more valuable than savings that it achieves on a present value basis. This refinancing is not to fund new equipment for the island-wide power system or other operational needs. The refunding will not, if it's not done, there won't be harm to the ratepayers in this matter. GPA has also estimated that the total cost of the bond refunding would be 4.22%. You know, that's difficult to predict. The bond refinancing, even if approved, wouldn't occur for months down the road. And the interest rates could definitely change. They change all the time. GPA has claimed in its presentation that the refunding is justified by historically low interest rates. But in fact, I've looked at the interest rates, and over the period of time since August 2016, interest rates have been going up. I mean, they've gone up, they've gone down, but you could call this a rising interest rate market. So the question is, if GPA is not correct in all of its assumptions about interest rates, about employment, about the Federal Reserve actions, we could end up in a situation where the savings will not materialize to the extent that GPA indicates. If GPA and Barclays are wrong, the alleged savings could be reduced substantially. There are also other issues about this bill that we need to look at. One is GPA has included prior receipts in the bill of $2.181 million as savings for the 2017 refunding bonds and prior funds on hand of $213,000. I think we at the PUC would like to take a closer, more careful look to see if these are real savings or not. In conclusion, at this point, the PUC feels that the alleged savings by GPA do not justify the refunding. GPA has relied on bond refinancing many times, and generally, the PUC has supported it. But on this particular refunding, we see very little justification, as was present with the prior bond issuances as well as refundings. We think that there are other measures that could be more effective. This refunding will place substantial new costs on the ratepayers. The PUC requests that Bill 13934 not be approved. Dr. Johnson appreciates your consideration of his testimony. Thank you.
Is the CCU and GPA ready to respond to some of the statements that were made? Because
yes,
the statements
Mr.
that were
Speaker,
made by the PUC are pretty strong and
yes, they are. But and we agree with some of the statements. One of the statements that we agree with is that we would like the PUC to take a closer look. We have not really been able to discuss in full detail with the PUC all of the things that they brought up. And with great respect to them, we would disagree. We believe that they've misinterpreted some of the data that they've seen in terms of this refunding. And so we agree that they should do their due diligence. We don't have a problem with that. We look forward to that. But we really can't go there until we have an authorization that says we can proceed to look at refinancing the bonds. The way this is set up is that first there has to be a law, as with everything that we do, there has to be a law that says that GPA is authorized to refinance some of its bonds. And in the law, in the bill, I think it says subject, of course, to the approval of the CCU, the PUC, GIDA, all the different entities. So what we're saying is that this bill is like a threshold bill that says we start down the road, and we would like to work with PUC. We look forward to working with them. We do have a good working relationship, I believe. But we believe, and I'm going to ask John Beneventi to address certain of the items that were addressed in Dr. Johnson's letter. But first, the point I'd like to make is, if we're going to refund anything, if we're going to borrow money, the first step we usually take is to come to the legislature and say, we would like to borrow money, this is what we're borrowing money for. And
my only problem with that statement, Mr. Chairman, is your own testimony from GPA. It states in here, GPA filed a petition with the PUC for refinancing last November. And so what authorization from the legislature had been given prior to November 2016 for you to be going to PUC? I would have hoped that all of this had been cleared at PUC before you brought this to us.
So, in other words, it's the position of the legislature that we can work with the PUC, start doing everything?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, you're saying that you're claiming that's the
we
procedure.
believe that's the procedure.
You believe.
We believe.
But in your own statement, you went to PUC before you came to us last November.
I'd like John to explain that, because I think that was a little different. Go ahead.
Well, if you can tell me which authorization you guys went to them with, and couldn't you use that same authorization?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In November, prior to November, again, let me explain perhaps the difficulty that we have with the process that is set up. No, with Attorney Ricky had mentioned, interest rates can change quickly over time. So back in prior to November, we received CCU approval to proceed, because there was an opportunity for refinancing the bonds. However, as you could be seen, we can refinance the bonds unless we get legislative approval, we get PUC approval, and get board approval. So therefore, we concurrently filed petition with the PUC and I believe the legislature. Did we file one with the legislature then? Remember? I may stand corrected on that, and at the same time, we're looking to pursue the legislative authorization. And so, again, recently, we were approached that there is now an opportunity, again, to save money, and that's what the presentation that was provided. It shows that if we refinance the bonds, and first of all, only a portions of it, because the way the bond industry works, not all are, some have higher yields or par coupons, so they do a combination of all of this to determine which one will provide a savings to GPA. So those portions, those bonds to different areas that don't provide a savings to us, they left alone. That's why we don't have a full refunding of 150. We can refund the 95 and get the 4.8 million savings over the next 24 years, or like I said, a net present value savings of 3.2. Now, we have the full intention to work with the PUC and its consultants and everyone, because we don't have all the answers necessarily ourselves. We have our consultants coming in also and telling us this. We believe that they are correct, and that's why we will be going to the next process to get all of this approved. But it's really kind of a catch.
In November, you simultaneously supposedly filed with us and with them.
Right.
When did you file with them for this one?
No, we haven't filed. We're getting ready to file with them, but we wanted to start with discussions with you, and we're going to file with them also. But we know that it's going to take you time to pass this. We're hoping that you will pass this soon. We're also going to be filing with them. When we did that in 2016, we were going to file We filed with them. We started to work on a law. We were going to give it to you and ask you to please concur on the law. And then the interest rates turned against us. So we just dropped it. And we never followed through. But this time, it's really something where we're trying to get you on board and them on board at the same time.
I understand. But
why haven't we filed with them yet?
Who's supposed to be first? Is it we or them? Because by your own testimony, in November, it was them.
Well, actually, it was supposed to be both. We were trying to do both at the same time in November. But the minute when we started going down the road, the interest rates changed. And we decided to just drop it.
And so I'm asking for this one. When did you file with them? It should have been simultaneous.
We have not filed yet. Mr. Speaker, and for all in transparency, we have not filed yet. We believe that for us that we should go to the legislature first and get your approval saying yes, you can refund it, subject to all the clearances and all the other approvals that are required. And that's basically what we think would be the best way to approach it.
It would seem to me that clearance from them first,
and then come back.
As I understand it, Port Authority was just before us last week, and they got approval for their increase in their
5-year rate plan.
In their 5-year rate plan, in anticipation of a bond that's going to be floated, and I don't see that this happened with this one. We don't have the expertise to be able to go through do this, and we would have expected. And I'm very thankful that the PUC sent in their testimony, because then it made us.
Yes, and I think that is where this is a little different. When we're doing refinancing, we're not increasing rates, so there is no rate plan. There's no need to go to them and say, we need an increase from you because we're going to borrow money. This is a little different. This is where we're coming to them and to you and saying, we believe we have an opportunity to reduce the amount of debt service that we pay. And we therefore will not be asking for a rate increase. We're going to be able to reduce a cost. So there's no need for a 5-year rate plan. There's no need for rates. This does not impact rates. We disagree with some of what the statements that the chairman wrote in his letter. We are not paying a $10 million premium. It actually works out a different way, and I'm not going to try and sit here and try and explain all the financings that go on in bond refinancing. But there is, at the end of the day, this is this takeaway we would like you to understand, and we would like to explain further with the PUC. When we go through this bond refunding, at the end of the day, all that happens is we will reduce the debt service coverage, the debt service that we will be paying, the debt service we will be paying, by about $200 million a year. It's not $200,000. $200,000 a year, rather. I'm sorry.
Everybody's having problems with millions and thousands.
No, $200,000 a year. It's not a huge amount, but it is a savings, and we are looking for savings everywhere we can get them. So there will be that savings. There's no money coming out from GPA. There's no rate increase that we're looking for. This is not going to impact rates.
But in fact, you will eventually have to go to them anyway, right?
Yes, but when we go to them, we would like to explain to them, because we believe that they have misinterpreted some of the data that I think we provided them. That's all. We're not faulting anybody. We just need to sit down and work a little more closely with them. So we will be going to them forthwith. But at the end of the day, the takeaway is we're not asking for a rate increase. In fact, we believe this is going to save our ratepayers $200,000 a year. We would like to explain it to them and help them understand our position a little bit better, because we believe that they've misinterpreted some of the data.
I know would help me, as much as I trust everybody at GPA. I know would help me, and I'm not sure how many of my other colleagues would have problems after reading the CCU and the PUC's statement whether or not they could support this legislation. Could we table this for right now until after you've gotten with them and figured it out, and as you saw, we could do this forthwith.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. We
But the
can do
thing
that.
is that I don't like this shadow lingering up there.
Okay.
And trying to take this and try to defend it on the floor when there is that fairly strong negative statement from the PUC. And if we could dispel it and come back and they join you, we could have this done.
May I make a suggestion, Mr. Chair? Go ahead. May I make a suggestion, Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Part of it really is timing and the process to get things like this done. There are some policies that seem to be set, like if the present value savings is greater than 2%, then refinancing can be done. In this case, we're looking at 3.2, or which is greater than 2. So it could be also set by policy, which is actually in law already, or policy that we have to get CCU approval. If CCU doesn't approve our refinancing, nothing happens. But at least then perhaps in the interest of time and in the interest of having the flexibility to be able to hit the market when the time is right, that you can make a contingent that the PUC, has to approve the scenario. There are no upfront costs. When I say no, again, I cannot be definitive. There's a slight cost that perhaps the only cost here might be the credit rating agencies. We have to get their rating of the bonds.
And what I'm
but all the other costs does not happen until a contract is signed the night of the bond issuance. So therefore, we don't everyone that's doing all this work don't get paid anything until we see that the issuance is going to be that rating, that percentage. So really, it's an opportunity with no additional cost to be able to save money for the utility. And $200,000 may seem to be a small amount, but that's $200,000 that we can probably use on something else. For example, and again, understanding from the where run the utility, we try to save on fuel savings for vehicles. We saved $200,000 this past year. So again, $200,000 is a savings in debt service. 4.8 over the 24 years, or when you calculate whether a refinancing or a project is economically feasible, you bring all those costs back to net present value, and that is $3.1 million dollars. So it's all the perhaps you may be able to give us the authority to go ahead and work with PUC, get them approved, and then we hit the market, versus having to come back again. We come back again, may take us another month and a half. Interest rates went up, we lost the opportunity. So there's really no cost additional. You can set the parameters that would allow us to go to the market. It's just that the whole process makes it, granted everyone may want to have that authority to set what will allow us to do this, but it seems like we just have too many approvals hoops that we have to jump through to get something done that is quite variable in the market. So that's why we're asking perhaps some consideration maybe.
And looking at this bill, with it introduced on July the 6th and today's the 17th.
Yes.
Within 11 days we had a hearing.
We appreciate that.
And so we show that we can do it if all of you are on the same page.
Okay.
But when two of you are not on the same page, even I'm not going to be able to carry this.
Yeah.
Maybe the three sponsors might be able to try to convince everybody on the floor, but I assure you, there's going to be lingering doubt, and you're better off.
I agree.
Tabling this until you clear that, and I'll schedule a hearing within 5 days of you getting their working things out with them.
Okay, I agree, Mr. Speaker, and what we'll do is we'll approach the PUC forthwith and we'll start down that road. We'll petition them, and we'll engage them. We really believe that they have misinterpreted some of the data. No fault. It's just that I think when they looked at some of the schedules, they saw $10 million, and they thought that's a premium that we're paying. We're not paying anybody a premium. It actually works the other way. But we'll have to explain that to them. And also all the other costs. We figured in even the costs for the presentation to the rating agencies and getting the rating agencies to endorse or to do their due diligence. So we figured out the cost. The takeaway is this: at the end of the day, after all the costs are paid, we believe the savings will be about $200,000 a year, and we believe that with all the financial wherewithal and the knowledge that we have. I appreciate what you're saying, and I have no problem with doing that. We will go straight to the PUC, and we don't have a problem with you tabling and being able to call us back into a hearing within 5 days. I appreciate that.
Before I do that, I think I should probably give one of the
no. I'm just saying
an opportunity. They may not want to do this. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Trying to get 8 votes.
Yes. No, I appreciate that, Mr. Speaker, and that's why I said I thank you for your offer and your suggestion, and I think we'll do that. We're open to doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the testimony provided here today. Just to, for the sake of the public, just to clarify some things. So when GPA goes out to the bond market, let me see if I get the process correct. GPA makes a request of the CUC's approval, works with GITA, and works with the PUC, and all of that happens before coming to the legislature for the statute to get passed into law in order for that to happen. Am I correct?
That's correct. If you're going out for a bond issuance to raise money for projects.
I understand.
This is a little different.
I do understand that it's different. I think just to echo some of the speaker's sentiments is that process exists and there's collaboration there on all parts, and there has to be obviously agreements across all bodies, and you guys being the experts in your field. Now, echoing the sentiments of the speaker, I think the thought was that all of these things had happened already prior to coming to the legislature. I'll tell you individually, this is not my realm of expertise as much as I would like it to be. And so obviously I'm a little wary. We don't want to be here, I think, and speaking for myself, I don't want to be here attempting to adjudicate whether the PUC is right, whether GITA is right, or whether the CCU is right, or GPA. I think what I would like as a policymaker before passing law, which I believe is more towards the final stage, is that as you guys came together on the bond issuance, because you all have a role to play in one form of another, that you guys all come together on the bond refinancing. And, again, judging by the testimony, I think that system had already existed in place where you had petitioned simultaneously the legislature and the PUC. And so perhaps if there was just within the board just kind of a policy for anything else that comes up, because there may be other opportunities in the future for GPA and the CCU to refinance a bond that will potentially save the ratepayers money. But I do have to agree with the sentiments of the speaker that the legislature should be the last step, because truth be told, we're talking about affecting Guam law. This is a law that's going to be passed on behalf of the people of Guam. And so therefore, I think every single party that's involved in this should be addressed prior to, so that as lawmakers we're able to make and place our vote based on all available information. I'm very cautious about voting on something without all the information there, and the PUC's input, or there being a potential miscommunication, as you have stated, could result in missing information to myself and the other lawmakers in this final step of the process. As one of the co-sponsors of the bill, I don't have an issue with this, allowing this a little bit more time to develop, and I would support any initiative to bring it back out and push it forward as fast as possible. once there's some parity between the different entities, because I would like to see that the ratepayers are able to save some money. I would just like to add too, again, thank you for always looking at opportunities to save the ratepayers money. However, I just ask that maybe we consider some other things too. Potentially, if another opportunity comes up to refinance at a lower interest rate, if those potential savings could be used towards a principal of another bond that has potentially a higher interest rate, and we could look at potential savings over the long period of time with a greater impact to the ratepayers. For example, if we refinance this to a lower interest rate, I think what's that, 4.22%? Is that correct? For this one? And
That's the projection.
Projection. And let's say, I think you guys are doing some other upgrades and some other bonds for some other capital improvement projects. Potentially, if they carry a higher interest rate, if something that could be included in the assessment is that if refinancing this bond, we take those savings, realize that, and apply that to another bond. Apply that towards a principal payment towards another bond to look at real potential long-term savings. It's just a thought. See Gita, they're shaking their heads. Again, well, thank you for the input.
No, I actually, your heart is in the right place, Senator, if I may make a comment real quick. The way it would work is that if we were able to lower the debt service, what we were paying for our monthly mortgage payment, to put it in layman's terms, then if we got another loan to do an extension on the house, then that would benefit us, because then our amount of money available to pay debt would be better, because we've cut down on one debt. Okay? So your heart is in the right place, and I appreciate your thoughts. Could I just also make one slight comment? This is really a little different, because as we go out to the rating agencies, for example, in trying to do this refinancing, when we go to them, they're going to be looking, okay, so do you need a rate increase? And that's what we're telling you. We're representing to you, there's no rate increase here. In fact, we're going to lower our costs. That's the whole point. If they look at this and they say, gee, you guys will need rates, the minute they see that we don't have rate support from PUC, they're going to say no. They're going to walk away. So that's why I can represent to you that this, as we look at it, is not going to cause any rate increase. The projection is to reduce cost.
I do understand that, and again, I respect that. But again, that's the prerogative of the PUC, who has that in their purview to make that determination about the rate increases.
Yes, and that's why I said we don't have a problem.
And again, and thank you again for the sentiment and statements. I just want to make it clear, I think, as a prerogative for myself as a senator, is that I think that applying something into statute and law should really be the final step, and that's what I'm asking for individually. And again, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Duenas, sir, simple question. From GPA to CCU and then PUC, right? All this bill is asking for is that the permission to go to CCU, then PUC, right?
Right. And to go out and do this.
But it's to ask permission from the legislature to go the steps.
Right.
And PUC is already saying, Mr. Reckes, they're saying no, they don't support them going, GPA going to CCU, them to you. Is that what you're saying? You don't want the process to get to you to say no? Because at the bottom line, isn't this PUC is the final? I mean, if it doesn't pass PUC, it doesn't matter if we pass whatever bill, it doesn't go by you. Right?
That's correct, Senator. We provided testimony. We were asked by Speaker Cruz to look at the bill and give our best opinion about the bill and whether it was necessary. But the way the process would generally work, if the legislature approves this kind of bill, then yes, you're correct. It would go through the CCU and then to the PUC. This is Chairman Johnson's testimony. He does speak on behalf of the PUC, but generally what would happen if you pass the bill would be then there would be more proceedings before the PUC. There would be a petition filed. GPA would then have the opportunity to present its arguments in favor, and then the commission, a body of 7 commissioners, would vote on the matter. So that's the normal process. But I think we have an interest in these kind of bills, and we still feel that the savings are somewhat questionable. I know $200,000 a year is mentioned, but the problem is that's not the value that the ratepayers would actually get in 24 years because of present value issues. So the money that they're alleging they would save will not be $200,000 and could be considerably less 15 years from now or even 10 years from now, depending on inflation and other factors. So, but as for the process, I believe you've correctly identified the process.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear and understood, because I see where the speaker's coming from and my colleagues here, but if GPA needs a green light, work the process. But if it dies at CCU, don't say it was us. If it dies at PUC, don't say it's us. It's your fault, because at least I see something coming out. I see the drawings on the paper. The only thing I need to remind the folks there is that, Bill 88 is coming up, and you need to have the money up front. If it gets passed in the legislature, you need to have the money up front to pay GITA. It's not coming out what you borrow. Just to let you know that bill will probably be moving forward in the session this month. And if that gets lucky and passed, whatever you borrow, you will not include what you pay everybody else. If you borrow 95 is what you get. Everything else you need to pay GITA or anybody else, you need to pay it out of house. It doesn't come out of what you borrow. So just to give you fair warning, there is a bill that's hot on the table right now. Okay, so it'll take a different course. So just something to think about.
Senator, I thank you for giving us notice. I did not know about Bill 88. We're going to take a look at it right away so that we can give you some input. Okay?
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
And Mr. Rojas, you had...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, if I may. So I essentially just have to kind of chime in here and essentially say that, GITA does essentially here, we are essentially here to be able to support GPA in this refinancing, and mostly because a savings is a savings. And what this refinancing is going to be doing is going to be lowering their debt service on an annual basis. We have presented some estimates with GPA as well as with our underwriters, as well as believe that is the same information that was given to the PUC. And whenever we do these estimates are very conservative. So we state that we are looking at an all-in TIC of 4.22%. Currently, the bonds are actually funding at 5.5% on average. So a reduction in a 5.5% interest to a 4.22% interest is quite a bit of savings, which is where that $200,000 a year would essentially be going. Again, what this does is this reduces their debt service payments on an annual basis by $200,000, which can then be pushed towards operations. I did shake my head a little bit earlier with Senator Estevez's idea that could actually be used towards other debt. It's probably better used towards other operations because they wouldn't be paying any interest on trying to be able to look at that. But that's up to GPA and GPA's management to be able to kind of decide exactly where that goes. The numbers are there. There is going to be a realized savings to kind of go from that standpoint. And we are essentially just there to be able to testify and help to spearhead the communications between the CCU, GPA, and the PUC that savings does actually exist and will exist for the maturity of these refinanced bonds.
Go ahead.
What's the intention for the $210,000 in savings if everything was to come to fruition?
It will be one more cost savings measure that we've done. We've done others. We continue to look at savings. And let me explain. We had almost 2 years ago a catastrophic event at Cabers 3 and 4. So right now we have some very big issues confronting us. One is the need to repower generation, okay? and including repower generation will be collateral equipment that will be needed, pipelines, tanks, and other things. So what we've done is we're trying to cut back, find as much cost savings as we can, so that when we go out, there's several things. There's still the claim that we hope to settle someday with the insurance companies on Cabras 3 and 4. So we want to try to put all the money together. The goal is to not raise rates at all, to repower generation, to fix the ship, to do everything that we need to do more renewables, to do all of the good things that we want to do at no increase in cost. If at the time we finish all of these big items and, you know, put this whole ball of wax together, and we find out that, hey, we can actually reduce rates, that would be great. We'd love to do that. That is where we're trying to go. So everywhere we can, we look to reduce rates. We are now down to, we've cut personnel costs. We've cut the number of people that work at GPA. We're down to how much? Just tell me. 460. About 460 people from 512 when I started in 2009. So we've been cutting people. Oh, from 2014, that's right. So because I think we were at 436 when I started in 2009 on the CCU. And we've been constantly trying to find ways to cut costs. So we've cut personnel, we've cut a whole bunch of other stuff. And we continue to look at doing more renewables. We're going to do 120 megawatts. We want to do another 40. So we're going to be up around 180 megawatts of renewables. So to do all of these things, because you need generation that's going to work well with renewables, our goal is to put all the money together, cut costs, and that's where the money will go. To put all this into place and have no rate increase. To come out with a really good power utility that has renewable energy, that is reliable, and can provide the island with the power it needs to grow, and no increase in the base rates. We don't control the oil. I have to always mention that. So the oil is the oil, but no increase in base rates. And that's our goal. Okay?
This Series A bond, the one pulled out in 2010, was there, this maybe to the POC, was there a rate increase associated with that?
Yes.
Yes. And while I appreciate all the efforts you're doing, again, I ask, you know, the board to just be mindful as a matter of principle. If rate increase was provided for this bond, this specific bond, and said bond is being refinanced with the potential of savings, I think as a matter of principle, those savings should go back to the ratepayers. Again, I do appreciate what you're trying to do, but I somehow, though, I feel that it's somewhat out of the, doesn't necessarily fit into the purview of the CCU, but more of the PUC, because where potential savings should go back to the ratepayer, it should go there. Now, again, that's just as a matter of principle as thought. What I don't want to happen, obviously, is you give the savings back to the ratepayer, and then you go back to the PUC trying to borrow off the bond market for the CIP to get things done where we pay interest on. I get it. I I just add this as cautionary. Exactly. I get the concept, and I get what you guys are trying to do. That's why I say I commend it. But again, be mindful of that as part of using those savings for operations as opposed to returning it to the ratepayer. But I think we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Thank you. The committee will continue to accept any written testimony on this matter for the next 10 days. Please provide written testimonies to the Office of the Speaker, Benjamin J.F. Cruz, Guam Congress Building, 163 Chalantanta Papa, Haganya, Guam 96910. They may also be sent to my email via email address senator@senatorbjcruz.com. All right. Thank you. With that, we stand adjourned.